Tiberius was born in Rome on the 16th November to 42 BC, to Tiberius Claudius Nero and Livia Drusilla. His mother later on married Octavian, making Tiberius his stepson. As per Octavian didn't have any biological son, Tiberius became the emperor after him. Both of his biological parents belonged to the gens Claudia, an ancient patrician family that came to prominence in the early years of the Republic. His mother was also a member of the Livii family, an ancient plebeian but prominent family, through the adoption into it of his maternal grandfather. There is little is recorded of Tiberius's early life. Livia married Octavian later, on known as Augustus. In 38 BC, his brother Nero Claudius Drusus was born. In 32 BC, Tiberius, at the age of 9, delivered the eulogy for his biological father at the rostra. In 29 BC, he rode in the triumphal chariot along with his adoptive father Octavian in celebration of the defeat of Antony and Cleopatra at Actium. In 23 BC, Augustus became gravely ill, and his possible death threatened to plunge the Roman world into even more civil conflict. Historians generally agree that it is during this time that the question of Augustus's heir became most acute. And while Augustus had seemed to indicate that Agrippa and Marcellus would carry on his position in the event of his death, the ambiguity of succession became Augustus's chief problem. In response, a series of potential heirs seemed to have been selected, among them Tiberius and his brother Drusus. In 24 BC, at the age of 17, Tiberius entered politics under Augustus's direction, receiving the position of quaestor, and was granted the right to stand for election as praetor and consul 5 years in advance of the age required by law. Tiberius began appearing in court as an advocate, and it was presumably at this time that his interest in Greek rhetoric began. Tiberius married Vipsania Agrippina, the daughter of Augustus's close friend and most famed general, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa. Tiberius was appointed as consul, and around this same time his son, Drusus Julius Caesar, was born. Ancienia. Agrippa's death in 12 BC elevated Tiberius and Drusus with respect to the succession. Tiberius divorced Vipsania and married Julia the Elder, Augustus's daughter and Agrippa's widow. Tiberius was very reluctant to do this, as Julia had made advances to him when she was married, and Tiberius was happily married. His new marriage with Julia was happy at first, but turned sour. Suetonius claims that when Tiberius ran into Vipsania again, he followed her home crying and begging forgiveness. Soon afterwards, Tiberius met with Augustus, and steps were taken to ensure that Tiberius and Vipsania would never meet again. Tiberius continued to be elevated by Augustus, and after Agrippa's death and his brother Drusus's death in 9 BC, seemed the clear candidate for succession. As such, in 12 BC, he received military commissions in Pannonia and Germania, both areas highly volatile and of key importance to Augustan policy. In 6 BC, Tiberius launched a pincer movement against the Marcomanni. Setting out northwest from Carnuntum on the Danube with 4 legions, Tiberius passed through Quadi territory in order to invade Marcomanni territory from the east. He returned to Rome and was consul for a second time in 7 BC, and in 6 BC was granted tribunician power and control in the east positions that Agrippa had held before him. On 17 September, Tiberius called the Senate in order to validate his position as princeps and, as had Augustus before him, grant himself its powers. Tiberius already had the administrative and political powers of the princeps, but he lacked the titles of Augustus and Pater Patriae. Like Augustus before him, Tiberius may have sought to represent himself as a reluctant yet devoted public servant, no more than an ordinary citizen who wanted to serve the state and people to the best of his ability. According to Tacitus, Tiberius derided the Senate as men fit to be slaves. Antagonism between Tiberius and his Senate seems to have been a feature of his rule. In his first few years as emperor, Tiberius seems to have wanted the Senate to act alone, with no reference to him or his responsibilities as first senator. The affair of Sejanus and the final years of treason trials permanently damaged Tiberius's image and reputation. After Sejanus's fall, Tiberius's withdrawal from Rome was complete. The empire continued to run under the inertia of the bureaucracy established by Augustus, rather than through the leadership of the princeps. Suetonius records that he became paranoid, spent a great deal of time brooding over the death of his son. Tiberius died in Misenum on the 16th March, AD 37, months before his 78th birthday. While ancient sources agree on the date and location of his death, contradictory accounts exist of the precise circumstances. According to Cassius Dio, Caligula, fearing that the emperor would recover, refused Tiberius's requests for food, insisting that he needed warmth, not food. Then, assisted by Macro, he smothered the emperor in his bedclothes. For more information, subscribe.